looking at the overall seasonality of this work, what is the thing that, like, how early do you have to start planning to actually deliver plant starts, chicks, etc.? Like, what is your planning for the growing season look like? Feel free to answer.
Okay, we have multiple, so we do them as pre-orders for chicks. And so chick pre-orders start in late December for them to start arriving in March. And then in the summer months, we now do pre-orders for produce and for, there's also a chick season, laying hens. What was the new one that we did? I forget the other one that we did this year. The system I built was built to handle a pre-order, and also we had 3 kinds. So I was like, oh yeah, no, we'll just move some stuff around. That'll work, no problem. Yeah. So yeah, and then there's chicks and laying hens into the fall, and then like you mentioned, there's transportation involved with live things, which is we actually have. I got to read them. We actually have instructions for the store for what to do when you don't get the chicks that get there alive. Yeah. And that sort of thing. It's really, I was like, oh, this really sucks. I'm glad I work on a computer. But yeah, so it's that, and then as far as that's really, and then there's also the planning for like what you were talking about, gardening stuff and that sort of thing. Most of that's handled by the buyers. Like what we handle is in our PIM, in our product information manager. It's kind of the heart of our system. So like, kind of what I've always said is like, if somebody came up and chopped the wires in our e-commerce system, fell into the sea for some reason, we'd be fine because we can just repopulate it from the PIM because that's where all the product data actually is. And so for us, it's about getting everything into the PIM and then rolling stuff out of it, or rolling it, turning it on and turning it off, and that sort of thing. And so a lot of that is the plumbing, and that's a lot of what I do is the plumbing part, just making sure
is that like just
stuff shows up.
Daily checks of your inventory to make sure that you're going to have enough on the shelves?
Yeah, so we run, so our big thing, so if you're smart and you're doing e-commerce, you're doing it out of a central warehouse and doing that thing. We're not smart. So we ship out of every store, or almost every store, which makes things really, really interesting because we have to be really careful that we don't sell out from underneath the store. So we don't want to sell the last thing that, we don't want to sell the last of widget X or whatever. And then like at Thanksgiving, at Black Friday and that sort of thing, like we put thresholds on product lines. So everything has a threshold like 1 or 2, but during holiday season or Black Friday, like we're putting 15 and 20 on it because they're going to be selling those so fast that somebody online could buy one and it gets picked out from underneath the store inventory and it doesn't update.
So it's a buffer.
So it's a buffer, yeah.
It's a buffer against store.
Yeah. And our buyers kind of have the cycles that they're used to doing that. The pre-orders are new, at least doing them online is new. So and it's, I guess, a huge business. I didn't realize. They're like, oh, we're gonna sell chickens online. I was like, yeah, okay, great. Go back to selling power tools over here.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, I imagine that most of the seed start companies that you're buying starts from, I mean, they're starting in December, January to fulfill what needs to come in April.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
used to have I worked for a while at SR Smith, which is a pool equipment company in Canby, and like a global leader out of Canby, Oregon, for pool equipment.
Interesting.
Pool equipment in Oregon, it did not make sense.
Right.
They were doing well. Anyway, my VP of marketing used to say, if it's January, it's June. And at first that used to just drive me crazy. But then when I got the seasonal business at like Coastal, it made complete sense.
Yeah.
So you just have to think that way.
Yeah.
If it's January, it's June, you've got to be in that space.
Yeah, the whole supply chain
Getting
is
ready for
reverse. Yeah.
And then the other thing for us, and Steve was really good about this, that we, for farm and ranch, at least for us, and I've seen it pretty much most places, November and December are gigantic. Like they're just huge. Like you're doubling rest of the year. And so from a development standpoint, which that's my bread and butter, like we code for, well, we say we're gonna code freeze in October, and then we code freeze like a week before Thanksgiving usually, although there was one year we had, was it gift cards? We were doing something. He and I were, we were UATing on Thanksgiving Day, and I had, it was during COVID, so I had my desk in the living room, so I was doing that, my wife had set up the table by, and I just flip around, have turkey, flip around, do some more. Steve's like, why is this broken? Don't say it's broken, man. It's how he does right
So I
now.
ruined it.
Yeah, no, it was great. I ate a lot of stuffing, but anyhow, yeah. But yeah, so what we always call is Black Friday Super Bowl for us.
Yeah.
And that's, and so you really, you plan to be in the right place, to have all your marketing set, make sure that all your promos work, like that everything's gonna roll.
Yeah, yeah. What was it like for OVS? I mean, you're working directly with a lot of growers as opposed to commercial buyers.
Yeah, so I worked really heavy on the commodity side. I have never sold a live or dead bird for that matter. But so on the commodity side, it's a year to a year and a half in advance. And so when you think about commodities, we're looking at steel, we're looking at lumber. COVID obviously threw a wrench through that. So we did bring most of our supply chain closer to home, to Canada and Mexico. But prior to that, a lot of it was coming from Asian countries. And so a year in advance was very normal. That actually was on the tight line. So if we could, it was a year and a half in advance, and you would just have to project and hope that people are putting vineyards in and orchards in. So for anyone who's not familiar with orchards, most of the commercial orchards are trellised now, similar to a vineyard. So you would have lumber trellising a tree out so that you can get more fruit in easier. So a year in advance was pretty common, and everything is based off of potentially 3 years prior. So when you're looking at a vineyard space or an orchard space, you're not planting every year. That orchard or the vineyard is staying in for 5 to 20 years, depending on the health of the trees. So you're looking at new property. What property is empty in the country that potentially has a buyer, a private equity buyer? And if you see a big land spot like that in an area that can grow, you can assume that they will buy either steel or lumber from you. All assumptions. So in any given year, you might be sitting on 3 months of supply or 7 years of supply.
Yeah.
And so you have to get really, really good and tight with your supply chains of understanding how much is it going to cost to store that if you get stuck with 7 years of supply.
Yeah.
What is the industry doing? Like we know right now, wine, beer, hops, everything is going down. So these types of commodity suppliers will sit on a lot more inventory. In that case, though, you have to look at, are you buying high or buying low? So COVID, you're buying extremely high, and you sit on that, and so you have to potentially compete with someone who bought early and has a much lower price. So commodities are a little bit harder to plan for. Also, if your supplier signs an exclusivity suddenly with someone else, for steel, for example, that happens pretty often. Every couple of years, your suppliers will sign exclusivities with someone else. And so you have to quickly find and test another commodity supplier. And then if you look at something like citrus fruit, it's really interesting because we don't deal with it here in Oregon. But Cuties, the makers of Cuties down in California, they were one of our biggest customers, and they rely 100% on bee netting. So if you're not familiar with bee netting or cuties are seedless, right? They're only seedless because the bees cannot bring pollen over. So bee netting is the only thing that matters to them.
So it's a self-fertilizing tree that if it gets fertilized, you get seeds.
And so think about California, every single one of your neighbors who's 20 miles away has some type of citrus. If their bees come over and pollinate, you get seeds and you're no longer a seedless cutie.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
your grocery store contracts would reject you, and you then have to sell a seeded, not a cutie anymore, a seeded clementine to the market, which no one wants. And so that bee netting was being sold 2 to 3 years ahead of time in advance in an amount that was just potentially a guess of what trees they might have, which ones they needed seeded or seedless.
Yeah, that's wild.
And so bee netting is pretty crazy. At the same time, it is not the same as bird netting, and it's stocking these items and these come in, 800-foot rolls sometimes. Where do you stock that? Where does it sit? Is it temperature sensitive? So when you're buying that far in advance, same thing with steel, you look at where is the steel coming from? Does it pass through an area next to ocean water?
Yeah, because that's
If
salt.
it does it show up with patina already on it because of the rusting, and now potentially your buyer will not buy it because it's patina? So all these things you have to think about a year in advance of what route will that truck go to bring steel up a coastal line or across the US.
Interesting.
Chickens are way easier. Way easier.
I mean, in general, when it comes to the farm and ranch side of things, we're talking about steel, lumber. Like, how does that work for e-commerce? Do you have a threshold where, in the system, you're tracking how much weight the person is putting in their cart to determine whether it's getting put on a pallet and shipped by freight? Like,
Yes.
how does that look?
Exactly, that's what you do. So, e-commerce for agriculture was the hardest business I've ever done for e-commerce. And that's because you have people coming in and putting 20,000 pounds of steel steaks in their cart, and then they're mad that you're charging shipping.
Right.
And I'm like, well, okay, that's 7 truckloads, right? You can't cover the cost. So you basically palletize everything. So you have to build your system to know exactly how many steel steaks fit by size and weight on a pallet, how much that pallet costs based on weight to your freight. So different freight has different weight thresholds of what they charge as overweight. And then lumber has a lot of rules too of what type of lumber can be used in different states and for what types of crops. So your lumber might be shipping from Canada straight from the supplier, but going through your e-commerce site, which means you need to charge the customer from Canada through your e-commerce, passing through your warehouse, but it's not touching your warehouse, down to the customer so that you can charge them appropriate shipping and have your shipping covered from another country, and taxes, and any customs costs. So Canada's a big supplier for lumber in the ag space. Right over the border, they actually do most of the poles you see for hops. Those giant poles that stand out.
Perfectly straight,
Perfectly
20 feet
straight.
tall.
Yeah, so Canada's a big supplier of those, but everything down to the lumber of a fence, Canada does a lot of that, but you want it to pass through the US as you as the supplier. So you can also buy it, bring it into your warehouse if you have space to say that you are selling directly from the US. So it depends on who's buying, how far in advance, but people wanting to do, 9,000 acres of fencing, and they want them in 3 weeks to arrive. And so you have to find a supplier that's close enough to do a ghost warehouse to pass through you without touching you, and it all has to go through your site.
That sounds really easy.
Yeah, it was a good, healthy challenge.
I think what we do is just a lot of not shippable, it's
Sure.
in the thin flag not shippable.
Yeah,
Right? So there's
yeah.
a lot of just pick up in store.
That makes sense. Yeah, let them do the labor of picking up all those kind of animals, right?
But there is dysfunction though in the business.
Yeah.
Because they can't, they're like, well, shipping's costing a lot. Like, when you have a banner at the top of the thing that says $100 orders are free, there's only so much we can do with that. It's never going to be a profit center.
$100 in socks versus $100
Right.
in feed is a different. There's a mass difference there.
Right.
That has to be done.
Well, and even if it's small stuff, this is the thing that gets us, is we'll have some sort of sale on something, but for most stores, for soft goods, for soft lines, we might only have one of these shirts. We might only have in this size. Well, they don't actually carry my size, but whatever. I'm not bitter. All right, fine. No, but there might only be 2 extra larges, or there might only be 2 mediums in the store. So we have some fantastic sale on Carhartt or something, and somebody's like, "Yeah, I want 16 of those," and so they're well over $100, and we're shipping them from 8 different stores, and we're paying for the shipping. And what I'm working on going into this year is an equation that'll be like, because the problem is, our e-commerce system doesn't know what store it's going to ship out of. That's what the order management does.
Yeah.
So it's not until it hits that algorithm that it actually oh, this store has 8 of them or whatever. But we can take a fairly good guess at this point, and I'm like, okay, we're gonna have a buffer. We're gonna build an algorithm that says if you do this, and it's, you can see that there's only 2 in 8 stores, and then the other problem is too, I don't know if you guys have ever been to a store, but people take stuff without paying. It's really weird. I don't understand it.
Self-checkout.
Oh, that's what it is, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. My mom didn't teach me about that, but anyhow. Yeah, so sometimes when we go to get the shirt, especially clothing, you get it, and it's been 5-finger discounted, and so suddenly you don't have it. So now instead of shipping it from Albany, you're gonna be shipping it from the state of Washington.
Yeah.
Because that's the closest store that has it. So we're struggling with that because it's definitely, like, when you were like, oh, you have to know what the weight is, I'm like, oh, I wish I knew what the weight was. We don't, there was a project last year to weigh most of our product line and get dimensions on it, and they shut it down because it cost too much money and they didn't think it was important. And so I'm like, okay, we'll go back to guessing. It's fantastic. So.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even think about the fact that for you in particular, at Coastal, the fact that they've got, I mean, I don't know if you guys have been to a Coastal, there's one in Gresham, I go there all the time, it's where I buy my chicken feed. You've got a combination of farm and ranch supply. You've also got like a selection of top-notch boots to buy, whether it's work boots or cowboy boots. You've got clothing, so there's all the seasonality in that on top of just how do you keep up with the trends?
Outdoor.
And that's what I'm saying,
Outdoor, it's a big
shooting, fishing,
4,000 SKUs in a lot of categories.
Yeah.
So whose problem is that? You mentioned the PIM being like the heart of everything, but how do you ensure you've got the right product data for all of these SKUs that are potentially changing seasonally?
We have a data team.
It's a huge challenge.
Yeah. Funny story, when I was hired at Coastal, because I didn't know anything about putting a catalog together, Steve was like, don't worry, I've got somebody to do that.
That was my mantra, don't worry.
Don't worry about it. We've got it. Totally stuck me
Just
in.
the weight.
Just rolled in, and it's like, I've got somebody, she works with the buyers now or whatever. She'd never done e-commerce, never done anything on that. Like, she was great for helping me get stuff from the buyers, but like, I got to learn all that stuff through the door, and we had to get the biggest problem, at least in farm and ranch, and still continue, they're getting better about it. I feel like 7 years on now, people are like, oh, stuff does sell on the internet. Was getting like product information out of, like, we would love to sell your stuff, but like we need a paragraph of copy to talk about it or whatever. And we got down, I mean, poor Steve. I mean, we went through 3 or 4 different firms that were gonna help us enrich our stuff.
Yeah. And
then we got one, oh my gosh, I don't remember what their names were, but we got them, and at the end of the day, after going, and we went through demo after demo, but they can't show you the product until you're signed and whatever. We signed the contract, they had Levi's. That was all they had. They had brilliant pictures. You had 15 pictures of any pair of Levi's that you wanted, but the rest of the stuff they said we were gonna have, they didn't have any of those brands. And so how did you find Sarah's firm? I don't know.
So yeah, we did so first, the big shocker was that when I got, because I hadn't done farm and ranch either before, also, the merchants, the brands that we sold in store, most of them did not have product data that was Ecomm ready, because they just weren't, it was new for a lot of them. It sounds crazy to say in 2018 it was new, but it was. Now, larger brands, Wrangler, et cetera, got their act together, but a lot of them didn't. And so what I ended up doing was, I found this firm in India that did data enrichment. They just did their own research, so you just paid them by the SKU. And
They saved our
procure. Did they manage the photography as well? Because that's like one of the most complicated things for good e-commerce, right? Is having photography.
We use the product off the product sites.
Yeah. So at least mostly the partners were able to supply some of that.
Yeah. Product data is really probably the biggest challenge.
Yeah.
Especially with seasonality. I mean, clothing in particular, like you may have 4 different of the same shirt, it may be released for 4 different seasons, and the blue is slightly different, the acrylic to cotton mix is slightly different. That's an angle I didn't even think about, like how much trouble you were dealing with by having apparel as part of your e-commerce.
So now I think there's solutions, AI based, probably some of you use them or know about them. I've seen some demos, but I'm not in the space anymore. But so I think that is gonna help. That is a big challenge.
Yeah.
Also having your marketing team run your e-commerce, because they also take the photos and write all the product descriptions and weigh the product and build the e-com site.
Yeah, that'll work.
Nothing ever
So
went
make
wrong.
it marketing's problem, and the problem gets solved.
Yes, that's what they did. Actually, the last two companies, that's what they did. And while it fell on me, I will say it worked much better than separating those teams out, because at any given time I knew what pictures were missing. I could take the picture, edit the picture, and upload the picture, and I knew everything I needed to know to sell. And so it's not always a good idea to combine those teams, but having them at least work very closely, and I also made the product catalogs because of that. And so having that in one team actually, for an agriculture business, which when I came on they had 0 product data and 70,000 SKUs, being able to push all those things together under one hat actually helps the business a lot.
Yeah, that's one of the things that Steve set up when he got to Coastal first and started building the team.
Yeah.
And I think I was third through the door, and Amanda was with us. And but we had the tech end, which was me. We had the marketing end, which was Amanda. We had customer service was under us, and then we had product data was the thing. And all of those fell under Ecomm, and then we all had liaison. We were liaison to the parts of the company that were like us in the company. So like, there's probably 3 people at Coastal that actually understand what I do. And one of them is my boss, I hope. And so like, when I talk with IT, I'm like, hey, I need these things. They're like, you need what? I'm like, okay, well, let me explain it. But that model worked really, really well, is to have those centers, and we still we've got out merged and a whole bunch of other things, and we still sort of have that same setup. And it's really important to have those pieces. We fall under marketing, and all the marketing promotion is a peer to our to my boss. And I mean, again, I'm operations, so I don't really understand what they're doing in marketing, but like, having that connection, the people who need to know actually know those things.
So I think it's a good topic is just operationally, how do you structure your team and make sure it's successful. And one of the things I learned a long time ago was that the success of the digital team is reliant on these non-digital teams. And so in order to give us the best chance to succeed, I actually made it part of the performance plan for each person. They had a department that they were responsible for having a good working, productive relationship with. So he was IT, right?
Yeah.
And Amanda was marketing, the more traditional marketing side. So it was part of the digital merchandising. It was traditional merchandising. So it was part of your and how you got during your performance review was, do you have a good productive working relationship with that department? And that way we had everybody covered.
Really encouraging cross-functional.
Yeah,
teams to work
because
together.
somebody was responsible on my team for
Yeah.
that.
So, with the seasonality, you're gonna have, you were saying, stuck with 7 years of product. Like, how do you manage that? You've got product from last year that's still stacked in the warehouse. You've got product for this season coming in. How do you manage all of this shifting product? You've got, that you were storing the chicken wire out in the garden space at Coastal, right, or wherever. You're finding places to store things for the time being, but you've got a truckload of plants coming in that are going to be needed in that space. How do you manage all that? Like, how difficult is that to do?
Well, again, the buyers handle a lot of that. We have something they call disco, which cracks me up. which is discontinued.
Mhm.
And so a lot of times if you go into coastal and you go in between the rows, there will just be rows of like bins of jackets and stuff just cranked down. And that's like all the stuff that they've got to get out in order to take the new supplies. I had a question for you. When COVID started to abate a little bit, did you guys get jammed up with lots of stuff that like everybody's like, oh, you ordered this here?
COVID were our best sales years in the entire history of the company.
Right.
And the reason why is because everyone was stuck home. So all of these people who had corporate jobs were now doing gardens. People were telling us they wanted to plant a vineyard, and I'm like, okay, let's talk about this. How many plants are you putting in? 7.
And I live in a cul-de-sac.
7 acres?
Yeah.
No, seriously, they're like 700,000. And they're like, yeah, I'm really into making my own wine. And I'm like, you're not. You're not even gonna have a table grape with that. So yeah, for us, I mean, so we had 18 retail locations across the nation, and then 2 e-commerce sites. So the first one is through the main parent company name, that's B2B. Those are the people, the real vineyards, right? And the real orchards and people doing huge farms and ranches on the commercial level. And then what we did to get rid of these 7 years of inventory is we created a direct-to-consumer site. And so that is really hitting all these mom and pops. It's hitting the people who wanted to do blueberry wine. I still don't know what that means. But people putting in like these very small kind of experimental things. People who in North Carolina had 1 acre that they wanted to do some type of farming on. And so through that direct-to-consumer site, we were able to liquidate anything that didn't sell on the B2B side because those people needed discounts anyway. They weren't getting bulk discounts. And so they were super happy to buy a 2-year-old product, which a lot of times was still perfectly good. It was shears, it was brand name shears, it was gardening gloves, it was chicken wire that maybe had a little bit of patina but was still perfectly good. And so they were able to buy that stuff at 70% discount compared to the friends over here at Coastal because we're shipping it from Washington State to North Carolina. They didn't have to go anywhere, it was COVID, they didn't want to go anywhere, people were afraid to walk into a store. Now you can buy a discount from something that we've had for 7 years in stock. And so having the 2 e-commerce sites run separately at totally different pricing, never competed, it went to completely different audiences. I mean, people are putting 1 pair of gloves in their cart and buying, and the other site they're buying 20,000 pounds of steel steaks. And so it wasn't cannibalizing itself, it wasn't competing, different email lists, different marketing, and different merchandising, and it worked.
Yeah. That's so you kind of bifurcated who your market was.
Yeah.
Catering to.
Exactly. Do you have a question?
Yeah, just curious. You said they were competing, but you are selling on this product at a discounted price, but I guess you kind of answered my question. It's a their own product versus somebody coming in wanting to buy the latest product, but even if there's a large B2B company that doesn't mind selling their own product, are those companies coming in wanting to buy it at a discounted price?
Sometimes, not super often because the B2B customers already get a bulk discount. So oftentimes their bulk discount is different than the other customers, yeah. And with people wanting to plant 7 vines of trellises, which is, if you're not familiar with trellising, it's kind of silly to pay that much to trellis just a few things, where they're trellising 2 trees. And they were doing that for the aesthetic look because they oftentimes had like a cidery on the property where people were doing weddings on their property. So they were doing it to have this really nice commercial look at a small level. And so the people buying at the B2B were already getting such high bulk discounts. And we got those through our supplier, we passed it to the customers. So that actually worked really well. And the company I was with before doing chainsaws and outdoor power equipment, it was very similar. So they sold through their own direct website, full price, maybe $120 for a chainsaw. But they were selling through Amazon and eBay and through mass merchants. So mass merchants were already getting a discount through their bulk mass merchant price. Very few consumers were coming and buying 1 or 2 chainsaws off the website, but they were making such high margins on that compared to Amazon that it just made sense on the operations end to have the website running.
So how do, like, just on the, what, in terms of chasing market, chasing customers, like, what's the preferred channels for this? Is social media, like, really driving a lot of demand at this point? Or,
It's better now for social media because people with TikTok for the DIY stuff, for home and garden.
Yeah.
I've actually seen Coastal get shout outs on TikTok. I actually personally don't use TikTok. I want to make that very clear. I don't use TikTok. I have people that use TikTok for me.
Yeah.
I just never got into the video thing. But we started using TikTok, just not even a person doing it, just doing home and garden and DIY garden, people using a strategy that we used that was very difficult to get into a market was cannabis, used trellis netting for cannabis, which is actually quite a large market for e-commerce and farming in the US. So it's these big square plastic netting that you clip the plants to. You can't actually sell that on e-commerce because you get hit with states that aren't recognizing that as legal, so you have to call it hemp trellising, which is totally legal everywhere. And so you just sell, 80 grand of hemp trellising to little farms. And so that was something that just blew up, and a lot of that came from social media of people doing cannabis-specific videos and saying, I got my hemp trellising from this company, and they would tag us. And we knew. I mean, it's quite obvious that I could tell the difference of the plants, and they're in a big grow house that's hidden under a tarp, and
that dude has a huge hairnet.
right. And they're like, wanna light up when you walk in, and I'm like, no, I'm on the clock, So I visited some of these, but that is a strategy we used that worked really well. Is we gave them a discount to tag us on social media, and so our socials got quite large right when I left the company. But aside from that, it's industry knowledge. It's farmers telling farmers, neighbors who have a fence and then other neighbor needs a fence, they're asking where they got the lumber, and they're saying, this is where I found the cheapest price.
So farm and ranch, like retail, on the retail side, is traditionally highly dependent on print, and specifically flyers, through the newspaper and the regular mail. And so that's where it was a lot of fun, because I was there and we started this meeting, then we were there to digital transformation is what we really were doing. And in a very stable, this has worked for 20 years, don't bother us with your digital industry. And so it was really fun and challenging, and you had to do a lot of influence without authority, that sort of work. And but that was where the opportunity for digital. So also the audience tended to skew older demographics. Frankly, that was one of our challenges. How do we skew that? And we did that through digital marketing, and we could see it in the demographics that Google Analytics was reporting to us.
Sure.
Over the course of a few years, we did smooth. It was kind of like this, and then we did kind of smooth it out. And so it's really about the marketing mix, right? And trying to figure out the mix. And so luckily, Coastal, everyone's heard the jingle, right? That's what the country needs. And so we had that jingle and so part of what I did was I wanted to activate that jingle digitally. And so it's Coastal Farm and Ranch, just what the country needs. Everybody, if you've grown up in Oregon, you watch it. What's that?
I'm gonna need interpretive dance over here, sorry.
Coastal Farm and Ranch, just what the country needs.
Hey, he came and played banjo at one of our meetings.
Farm Ranch, you gotta play the banjo. Anyway, so what I did was, so people have heard this jingle for years, but the web domain was coastalfarm.com. Internally, our LMS, like HR, the LMS for HR, the training videos and so forth, was called coastalcountry.com. And I'm like, excuse me, I want that domain, because I want to activate country in the name, and also country is larger than farm. Country is this, farm is this. So you can, so a much larger demographic.
Yeah.
So then, so when we launched the e-commerce site, we switched domain names to coastalcountry.com. Then I had the opportunity to rebrand a rewards program, and it was called the Club Coastal. And I'm like, and there's a country music song called I'm a Member of the Country Club. I'm a member of the Country Club. It's making fun of like highfalutin country club, and like, no, the real country club is country music fans. And so I rebranded the loyalty program, the Coastal Country Club. And so those two together, and then through messaging, through different channels, and I use the story brand framework. Any marketers in here that are familiar with the story brand framework, it worked really well to reach this audience and tell the stories, making them the hero. So story brand's about the customer, the hero, the brand is the guide, the brand is helping on, right? And the customer's loop. And so, so that worked really well, and revenue just took off over the course of a couple of years.
And there's two pieces of that. One, like, talk about Lucky Timing for Coastal, because they were all flyer based. And believe me, there are still people in the company. We had a consultant the other day say that we should have a website and we should put that money into little flyers. And I was like, yeah. Unfortunately, he's the consultant to the chairman. So, okay, but anyhow, but the timing was brilliant, because right about the time that Steve was doing that switch to digital was just as COVID hit.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden people aren't coming to the stores, people aren't, and the leadership of the company really recognized that change in the way we marketed really kind of saved the company's bacon.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, and this is it's just the way life is, right? You hear about the family farm, but it's not the family farm anymore, it's the industrial farm, it's whatever. And again, a lot of those family farms, those are the core customer for something like, for a store like Coastal Farm or Cow Ranch. And as they go away, like, you need other markets. And so the switching to Coastal Country, the concentrating, I don't know if you've been in a coastal farm, we have lots of clothing, lots of country fashion clothing. I don't really go for the spangly button jeans, but whatever. If that's your thing, we got it. And they're not cheap. That really, we did that demographic, what was that, 5 years ago? We did a demographic study where we were looking at personas, and with the help of kind of changing this perception, we were across a much greater swath of age groups than what I expected. I mean, I worked on a farm at high school and all the farmers were 60 years old. I don't know how they do that. Do they catch them like that or something? But anyhow, but there's, I mean, you get a lot of the people who have 1 acre that they want. If you go vertical, you can have a lot of.
You can have a lot. I garden vertically.
Exactly, there you go. But like we had, what was it, Sunsetter, what was it? It was Farm and Ranch.
Homesteader, Farmer Rancher, Country Mindset,
and Tradesperson, right? Because Carhartts last forever.
Yeah.
So using that framework, and it used to be, I mean, when the site launched, we literally, the hero panels on the front page, each one of them were those, and that lasted for well over a year.
Yeah.
That was that, and it works, because, and you've got to start bringing in younger people. You got to bring in the people who are doing the backyard garden or whatever, those sorts of things,
Right.
because the amount of customers that are coming in buy 100 cattle paddles or cattle panels or 1,000 cattle panels, that's a smaller demographic. So.
Yeah, so lots of smaller transactions.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Ours is, our AOV is very much. I can't even keep up with one of her pallets.
Well, the direct-to-consumer site, though, the average order value would be like $50.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
And they're paying for shipping,
Yeah.
no problem. And then on the other side, some of those are $2 million. We had 18 retail locations plus e-commerce sites. That's also a lot of overhead.
Yeah.
And you're shipping from 5 different billboards still work because people are on the road all the time, driving cattle, they're driving lumber. Seeing the billboards helps, and it varies a lot by state. You know, in Washington and Oregon, it would be $3,000 for a month, and then our California stores, it was $6,200 a month. And our New York store, it would be closer to like $4,000 to $5,000 a month. And so we had to spend a significant amount of our budget on billboards because we saw when we had a billboard out, the retail stores really benefited from that.
Well, yeah, just driving foot traffic.
Yeah.
Yeah, top of minds. Yeah. You had mentioned customer loyalty programs. How much is that affecting, or I mean, even just looking at like how specialized different buyers are and what they're coming for? Are you segmenting those in some way?
Yeah, I mean, what I did was implement a customer data platform, and for folks that haven't implemented one, and like it's like should be at the top of your list.
Yeah.
And because especially now, because you need to get your customer data
Yep. First
in
party
a row
data.
for AI, and so for some reason people don't talk about CDPs enough. I'm a true believer because I saw the power of it because you're leveraging all those cues of what are people looking at, what blog posts are they reading, and then you just build criteria to put them into segments, and it was very powerful.
Yeah. Awesome. And so then downstream of that is that all of the marketing is honed to who that person is and what they're interested in. So
Their site experience
Yeah.
and the email that they get and that sort of thing. So that's super important, and loyalty is really, really important. If you look at Tractor Supply.
Never heard of them.
Never heard of them. I wish I'd never heard of them. They are pushing subscriptions on every order for dog food, for all of that stuff. We are sort of new to the game. This is something we've had subscriptions since October, I guess, and we're getting ready to roll it out to a lot more. But for a loyalty transaction, the AOV is usually $30 to $50 more per transaction. So, and I think it was in the 60 percentile of all. Now that's everything. That's store loyalty too, not just e-commerce. But I think 60% of our sales were people who have loyalty accounts.
And the reason it's so key is because you can't capture data in store unless someone gives you their loyalty network. And so that allows you to tie your in-store data together with your online.
Yeah, you have to buy in cash. If you've got that phone number, that's enough.
So that's
together.
to make the data work.
Now, if they use their wife's phone number or their dog's phone number, that's a whole other fun thing. Is like, I have 8 accounts. Yeah, I know you do. But yeah, no, loyalty is huge, and it's only going to get bigger.
Yeah.
In fact, one of the things that's changed was we no longer call it loyalty. We called it rewards. He's like, you don't say loyalty outside. We say loyalty inside.
Yeah.
We say rewards outside.
Loyalty is the brand.
Right.
It's the brand gets benefit from loyalty, the customer does not get benefit.
Right, exactly.
The customer gets benefit from rewards. So I struck loyalty off the terminology.
Yeah. Yeah.
You call it rewards.
That's
Because you
smart.
gotta be in the shoes of the consumer.
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned that 800-pound gorilla. Like, how do you compete with these larger national chains? I mean, there's some of the things that are carried by Coastal or by Wilco. I mean, even OBS. You can just go to a Home Depot. and
Oh
buy
yeah,
those.
no. Lowe's has a Carhartt section.
Yeah.
Every time I go, I'm like,
Home Depot sells Vineyard safes now.
oh.
Actually, we lost some of our direct-to-consumer customers to Tractor Supply for one reason, and you said it. What is it?
It's their mailing.
It's a
shipping.
product,
Oh, what did I say?
dog food.
Oh, dog. Oh,
So,
don't even get me started.
as part of our loyalty program, we started doing this outreach to some of these great customers we've had for years, and we had both the direct-to-consumer side and the B2B, and so we knew the loyalty levels. And we reached out to people that for years had purchased through our direct-to-consumer site, and then all of a sudden dropped off, and we were sending, special discount codes, special emails, targeting with exactly what they had purchased in the past. And we finally had a couple that responded to us, and we just reached out with an email, and they said, Tractor Supply sells my dog food, and I want a one-stop shop. So
That's
for
wild, yeah.
a year of leadership conversations, we talked about, do we have dog food? And when you're looking at the grand scheme of things, like we're making $2 million on one order of steel steaks, or do we risk these 3 customers that left us, whose average order value was $52, but we didn't sell dog food and now they're gonna go somewhere else. And so ultimately we did not add dog food, but that was something we heard, and as we see people coming to pick up their pallets in the retail stores, every single person had a dog in the back of that truck.
Yeah.
We were like, that's
Versus
something
dogs
that,
go hand in hand.
right, and they'll pay $2 more down the street at a different shop because they can pick up their dog food or a dog bone, or they walk in and someone hands them a treat.
Yeah, right, yeah.
So, a couple different things. First of all, you asked about the fence. So, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 3 years ago, Steve, Coastal sold to private equity. And then a year later, they bought Cal Ranch and merged these 2 companies. Cal Ranch has 34 stores. We had 21 stores. So we're now a 55 store chain. I can tell you that the #1 reason for doing that is to try and hold off Tractor Supply. Because the little moms and pops anymore, if you are a Grange or if you're somewhere like you're selling stuff and you're getting it so low, below market and whatever that you could sell. I mean, we can't compete with a lot of the Granges because they're getting it local and they're getting it local for way less than we are, and good on them. But Tractor Supply, I mean, it's a huge problem because Tractor Supply, Chewy was the one when we first launched. There was like, are you guys gonna ship dog food for free? And I'm like, do we want to go out of business? But Chewy can bleed all day long because they're attached to PetSmart and they are a publicly traded stock, and so they can do that and they can take the loss. So you have to, I know in your bullet points you said what's the differentiation, and the #1 thing is customer service.
Yeah,
It's
they
got to be, they have to have a reason for coming in that store, and they got to be treated well. And I can tell you, Coastal has done a really good job at that, and COVID made it really hard because we lost lots of people, brought in lots of new people, there's lots of turnover, that sort of thing. And so that has been a struggle to make sure that we're maintaining that level. Buzz, who owned Coastal, sold it, and then now has come back as the chairman of the board, and he's really pushing that into the new, he's pushing it more into the company than we've had since we were acquired. And I think it's really important because you can get, a can of dog food at us, or you can get a can of dog food at Target, or you can get it at whatever, it's the next one down the street. And so there's that. We do have house brands that are exclusive to us, like Wildology is one of our brands, and we have a few clothing brands and that sort of thing, but not enough to make a big enough difference to overcome. I mean, I'm sure Tractor Supply has 10 of me, and so which brings me to my third point, which is steal liberally. We steal from Tractor Supply's UI every day of the week and twice on Sunday. Oh, they're doing that. Okay, we're doing that. Because they can pay a team of experts to go do that, and I can look at their site and we'll go build it next week. So, yeah, absolutely. So, but they see, it's what is that? Flattery is the highest form of flattery. It's theft, or no, it's something else. I think that's right. I think I got that wrong. Sorry. Imitation. There we go. That sounds so much better than theft. I should have used that.
A lot of it depends on leadership.
Yeah.
When Tractor Supply went out for a new CEO, maybe 7 years ago now or something, the CEO came from eBay. And so then obviously, I believe it's eBay. It's one of those digital native companies. And so the board recognized the digital leadership. We met with a lot of mid-stage buying group is who Coastal is a part of. So we would meet on a monthly basis with digital leaders from a bunch of different chains, including Momgar's later consulting for, and they were not thinking the same way. Like in other words, digital at the top was not a priority, and so that made our jobs more of a struggle, I would say. But kind of like Milton, sorry, I used to get Milton, and so some similar challenges there in the old days. Anyway, so but I think Tractor Supply, that's why they're really good at digital.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's from the top.
Yeah. Interesting. So, as far as, you know, talking about this digital transformation, where have you seen the biggest return on investment from, you know, what tool is really moving the needle for you, in your view, on the e-commerce side of things?
For us, it was one, adding a really good CRM, manage all of those customer relationships, track everything. Part of it was a migration we did with our e-commerce site of just user friendliness, people understanding how to navigate. People in farm and ranch don't want a complicated site that does a bunch of things. They want farm and ranch supplies shipped to them and that's it. And so we actually did a couple migrations. Similarly, OBS was also private equity purchased in 2015, and then we did 4 acquisitions while I was there and merged. They all came with their own website, which I absolutely loved. And they wanted to keep them for 2 years, so I managed all of the sites. And the company I was at before, Oregon Tool, was also private equity owned, so I was familiar with that. We did 3 or 4 mergers and acquisitions. So with each of those, consolidating websites was huge. I think if the consumer is confused, they don't want to shop with you anymore. And so one of the things that we went through on the tech side was making a site that was easy to navigate, consolidating sites so that when they came, they didn't see 4 separate sites that were tied to the same name, because that feels fishy.
Yeah.
And each one had a different price, which was fishy.
Yeah.
And then same thing, you know, the outside was customer service. So, like you said, Home Depot sells a lot of stuff, but they also sold me the wrong size gasket 3 days ago from someone who was working in that section. That is the only section he works in, and he didn't know the size, and I showed him what I needed. So, good customer service goes a long way. And so we built a lot of tools into our e-commerce platform where we were able to easily communicate person to person. It wasn't just transaction, they have no idea when it's showing up, they can't get a hold of someone, it wasn't just chatbots.
Yeah.
And so we put a lot of just workflows in where multiple people got a notification if there was an issue, and we had a system in place where a customer got a response within 5 hours. It did not matter what time zone you were in. And so we were able to assign people in New York an entire range, people in Washington a range, and then like the leadership team would take overseas orders. It didn't matter that I had to respond at 3 a.m. because those were so few and far between. But that bumped our customer service and our loyalty so much, because they would come to us and say, it's my first time, I had a horrible experience at, and they would tell us that, you know, their local farm store. And that's because everyone went to chatbots and is like, how can I help you today? And you put in the problem and it's like, I didn't understand, how can I help you today? And you get that 73 times.
Yeah.
You don't purchase, you end the transaction, you go somewhere else. And so building those in place, having that human connection, and having a place where they could, quite frankly, just complain made a big difference for them. And they felt heard, so.
What was the CRM and Ecomm platform?
Oh gosh, I did 4 migrations on CRM, also a favorite activity of mine. So we used NetSuite, SAP, and then HubSpot. We ultimately moved, HubSpot became too expensive, and we moved back to NetSuite.
NetSuite is the ERP or the CRM?
It was both. So they have a CRM section, which don't love, wouldn't recommend to a friend. HubSpot I really liked, but it was quite spendy. And then my current company, right now we are on Como, which is definitely for small businesses, not fit for larger ones. But HubSpot I loved. I've used Salesforce in the past, but you obviously have to have a load of money and people doing that. But I built it from the ground up, doing all of the data transition from NetSuite to HubSpot, and just putting those things in place. It's a huge workload at the front, but it saves you, I mean, it will save your business in the end. Just being able to target those people differently will build that loyalty.
And that's where for direct to consumer, that's where, I mean, I've implemented both CRM and CDP, but CDP is really what you should be looking at, and direct to consumer. It's just night and day. CRM is built for the old B2B in the old days. CDPs were built for current days. In other words, they're all about integration and how to pull data from multiple touch points in store, online, content based, etc. And
first cousins though. I mean,
Yeah.
But they're not.
New TLA, similar kind of a deal. Though.
Yeah,
CDP is sort of new CRM.
It's,
That's what I mean, it's CRM for today.
yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing I recommend is putting, if you don't use Microsoft Clarity,
Yeah.
putting that into your website has helped a lot. So that will pull insights that sometimes you just don't have time to go search for on your own if your dashboards don't show you. But that'll show you how long someone is spending, how long they're scrolling on your page. If they're leaving your page at the 10%, 15%, but all the information and your products are down here, you've lost that customer. And so you want to track how far are they scrolling, if they're leaving too early, why. Also looking at, how quickly they're exiting out of a certain site. And you'll see that a lot if you have extensive amounts of pop-ups. You'll see that everyone is trying to get out of those, especially older generations. The pop-up is your enemy for those specific generations. And part of that is it can be anything from just frustration, wanting to do something quickly and not understanding where the X is to get out of it. That's something we saw really commonly. We reduced our pop-ups and saw a big increase of how long people are staying on the site and scrolling. So keeping that Microsoft Clarity, looking at it honestly every single day is not too much. I look at mine every day and I gather new information every day. So even seeing where people are coming to your site from, so we can see if it's coming from Instagram or Facebook, we see if they're on DuckDuckGo, we know that they want more privacy. And so looking at who's looking at what pages, you can now target them with a special deal on that. But Microsoft Clarity is very easy to use.
It's free.
And
It's
free.
free.
Yeah,
For
if you
those
have
who aren't
it- if you have
aware.
it,
Yes.
they found a space that GA wasn't covering.
Yeah.
And they committed to keeping it free, and yeah, if you're not using both, you're missing out.
In a world where nothing is free, having this one free thing shows you a lot of useful data.
If you're paying for Hotjar, look at Clarity.
Yeah.
Yeah, those frustration clicks can be very, very.
Rage
it's like-
clicks.
Actually, we use LogRocket. LogRocket has hate clicks.
Oh,
That's one of its metrics, so.
Hate clicks.
Hate clicks.
A lot.
Yeah.
The last thing I'll say with technology is everyone is using ChatGPT now, which means you need to find a way for your company to be mentioned in ChatGPT if you haven't. And so you can actually build that into your into the back end of your website. And so ChatGPT will pull information from what you put a script together, which ChatGPT will also write for you, which is actually fabulous. And then you put it into the back end of your coding, and now when someone is searching for something and doing price checks on ChatGPT, if you do that script correctly, it will pull your name in there and say Coastal Farm and Ranch has this the cheapest, even if it's not of how you built your algorithm in there. So that has been really helpful for us. We get mentioned in ChatGPT quite often in the space I'm in now, because that's how a lot of consumers are shopping now.
Yeah.
Gemini, ChatGPT, just to do,
Agentic shopping.
yeah. And
Yeah,
so,
the last event.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
lots of
recommend
numbers
doing
with
that as soon as possible because more people are shopping through there.
So you're touching on, I was gonna ask one last question because I do wanna leave some time for everyone to be able to ask some. What is, if you were gonna change one thing in 2026 about your e-commerce operations or that you would suggest to anyone else who's, running e-commerce operations, what would be that change? It sounds like a CDP would be number one for your list maybe? I think I think you're spot on because even though we didn't kill the cookie last year, like Google said they were going to, first party data, is still critical. And with AI coming, I think it's going to become even more important because if you have that data, you can activate it.
Exactly.
But
For me, I would say make your search tool foolproof. And so an exercise I did a couple years ago on the agriculture side is looking at the most searched for words, every single one was spelled incorrectly. So when you typed it into our search bar, it said 0 results because I spelled everything correctly on the site. My bad.
Because you
And
spell
so-
checked.
That's right. And so I went through and I looked and I just went into the back end and added all of the misspelled
All the
words.
synonyms.
Yep, and our sales skyrocketed. And so things in farm and ranch, think about who your audience is, what they might be searching for. And so people are searching for, we had a fan for sale, for example. It was just called fan. seems simple, but the farm and ranch ag people were searching for big ass fan. That sounds funny, but it's
Right,
actually
it's a
a
brand
company.
name.
It's a brand name. Little did I know, city girl over here. And I'm like, look at these guys shopping for big ass fans. That was a humbling moment for me. So we went through and we didn't want to put brand names on specific products because we had oftentimes mixed vendors, mixed brands together. And so in the back end, when you search for big ass fan, it would pull up our fan selection after adding those. But that was an exercise where just looking at people trying to spell brand names and they were all wrong. So I went through and put all the misspelled words into the back end of our website, and now people felt like they could easily search for the product, and it wasn't a no results on everything. It was always they had a result.
Yeah, something at least.
I have good news for you. So I get a report in my email every 5 days of all the AI generated synonyms because it's watching that list. So we're on Algolia. We use Algolia for our site search, and so we do. There are unique things like big ass fan. You're like, what is that thing? Oh no, that's this great thing. You put it on your truck, whatever. You know, that have to be added manually. But it's literally looking at what search terms didn't hit anything, and then where did that person go? What was their next? Maybe it's 8 clicks. I don't know.
Yeah.
But you know, what was the next thing that next place they went, and then it does it automatically.
Yeah.
So that's amazing that you did that. You did that all on your own. But
Well, I left 2 years ago.
okay.
Yeah.
And now I sell to the NFL. There's no hate clicks.
No, there's just victory dances and
Victory
Gatorade.
dances, spiking balls.
Exactly. There you go. There you go. So I would say mine is. So I went. Who here went to the last Ecomm? Ecomm loves AI. Who went to that? Okay, that was an odd. I know he did. That was an awesome event, and I honestly spent half the event taking. I think I took 15 pages of notes, and then the rest of the time I spent breathing into a bag because Geo is here, and it's scary as hell. So Geo is the thing, and agentic shopping is the thing, and it's. I mean, the people who are in the home office, our home office is in Idaho Falls, which is not exactly a hub of technology. They're all using ChatGPT to buy groceries, or not to buy groceries, but figure out groceries and select stuff and that sort of thing. And I'm just like, oh my God, if they're doing it, you know, it's coming, and you got to be ready for it. And there is, I mean, it's a little disheartening for any of you who use Reddit. I was reading somebody the other day. I was like, oh my God, it's just Reddit farming now because ChatGPT has a contract with Reddit to roll all their content to train their models. And so that explains a lot of things with our current reality, but anyhow. But yeah.
You have Reddit ads running.
There you go, exactly.
That helped us a lot.
There you go.
Yeah.
But those are the two things, when I brought my boss my 2026 plan, those were the top things, like we have to have a handle on this.
Yeah.
And I know that no one in the boardroom will even understand what this thing is. You know, one of the highlights of 2025 was with one of our board members who's no longer on the board, came into a board meeting upset with a report that he had gotten from ChatGPT of all the things that we needed to be doing better on our website. First of all, we were doing all of them. That wasn't a problem. But because ChatGPT said it, you know, that was the thing. You know, you should really have links that go to categories. Really? Oh my gosh, dude! Thank you, Einstein. Where were we? Over here. So yeah, they just parroted somebody's blog to them. But yeah, that was like a controversy for like 4 days that had us writing out explanations of how we do all these things already. So
screen grabs.
yeah, but I mean, those guys are using it. Like everybody else is going to be in it, and you know, it's a little. We don't use Shopify. We don't use. We do use PayPal, but like these frameworks are coming out. So if you're on your own, I mean, we're on Optimized, which is a gigantic e-commerce engine, but they don't have an agentic option yet. So from a technical leadership standpoint, for me is, we have to roll our own? How do we work this? Because I don't want to get left behind, and I don't want us to lose market position because we weren't on top of it. So that's my biggest thing is that those two things we got to be on top of.
Well, I want to leave it to everyone else. If you've got any questions, feel free.
Sarah, question for you. When you were at ODS, obviously you have 2 websites and then the retail locations. How much of revenue is coming in through digital mechanisms versus like in-store or like salespeople?
Yeah, so salespeople were about 80%. What I will say about loyalty is farm and ranch people are very loyal to their jobs, and so most of the sales staff were extremely experienced, like 20 plus years, and they had different pricing levels, so we would call it wand pricing. He was one of the best salesmen. He was pulling in almost 20 million by himself, and everyone would be like, no, I want to talk to Juan. We couldn't figure it out, right? Like all these loyal customers who had sales reps for 10 years and suddenly they want to talk to Juan. We're like, why is everyone asking for Juan? We found out Juan was giving Juan pricing. Right? And
There
we're
can be
like,
only one.
there can be only one. So all these people are coming to get Juan pricing, so our margins are dropping. But the salespeople made the bulk of the orders because they're going out into the field on the West Coast and then East Coast New York as well. For the websites, the B2B side was making 99.9% of the digital revenue, but the D2C making, I think when I left, the D2C website was making 5 or 6 million a year. And when I came on, the year I came on, it made $102,000. And so in those few years, I built it up for D2C, but you're selling one glove at a time. And so, but we were
Michael
reaching-
Jackson?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, that makes sense.
For like review.
There you go. Oh, that actually makes sense. I like it.
And so that was a very necessary part of the business because we captured the rest of the nation while the B2B side got all of the big accounts. And they always wanted it to be like, you need to make 80 million this year in D2C. And it's like, okay, people are buying one bird banger for their 6 vines to keep the birds off. And so ultimately, after a couple years of friendly arguing, we realized how we needed to separate those and that the salespeople would never compete with the D2C side. Even if we got a customer who was in their region for sales, they don't want commission on a sale of a glove. They don't. And so they're like, they wouldn't even talk to people under a certain level of sale. So that came to me for e-commerce, and they were allowed to pick it up in the store and just buy it from the e-commerce site. So we ended up having a very strong relationship, separating those, and people who had never been served by the salespeople finally felt like they were served by the company.
Is Juan pricing still a thing?
Juan, so funny story, I left 2 years ago, and Juan left right after. They had a big leadership change. So most of the salespeople who were bringing in 20 to 25 million a year left. I just found out last week Juan is coming back this month. So he had been there, that was his first job. He had been there 25 years. Every customer knows him. He will do that the rest of his life. And so Juan pricing still exists, but now there are thresholds.
He's got minimums.
He has minimums, yeah, and so I think the last conversation I had before I left was, we've got to eliminate one pricing. And, part of that was just years of loyalty with people who every year they wanted a discount, and when you're buying years in advance at, COVID pricing and changing suppliers, you can't always offer one pricing. It's just not sustainable, but ultimately with the thresholds in place, having the different pricing structures works really well from D2C to the B2B.
That's it. I want to say something about that. Actually, margin. One of the things in the farm and ranch space, at least since COVID, is the customers are very conditioned that there is going to be a sale every week, and there's just been a lot of that. And last year, or maybe the year before, like we were just really struggling. Like the sales were coming in, we weren't making any money, all this stuff, and management said, look, we have to make better margins. Part of that is pushing on the buyers to get better deals and to get, to not be order takers and to negotiate. Part of it is we strengthened they had a lot of sales promos that you get 20% off the promotional price. And so you might have, we're giving it away, why would you do that? So we've cleaned almost all of that up. It's coming back. When they come back, they're like, well, yeah, but that's off of all prices. Like, even the promotional price, yeah, off the price. No, dude, you're giving away literally the form. You're giving it away. And, but our numbers year over year for e-commerce, from our year last year was so much better when we stopped those leaks. Like, we were getting our butts kicked. Yeah, that was huge. And, that's not really my end of the business, but I mean, I helped make sure the code got written and plug the leaks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is always a complicated one, is habituating your customers to discounts.
Yeah.
That
In any
was-
business.
Yeah, that was very similar for us. We had, the sales team coming to us saying, are you running a Valentine's sale? And I'm like, on steel steaks? I had a plan on it, and then next thing you know, 5 p.m. I'm releasing, we love farmers, these, absolutely over the top, and then a month later, what's the St. Patrick's Day discount? I'm like,
Green steel.
yeah, on cannabis trellis.
Oh God, there we go. There we go. F trellises.
And they
Yeah.
wanted it for everything. President's Day sale on Amazon buys, and then they
Logo,
wanted
steel girders.
Yeah. Oh my
Oh,
God.
it
Why
was
would get one?
everything,
Oh my God.
and they wanted these.
Washington's wooden teeth.
Yes,
Yes,
and it
yeah.
was holidays that we don't even recognize to get the day off. And I'm over here coding these little discounts with the weirdest marketing. Like, how do you make 17-foot lumber steaks sexy? You
Yeah.
find a way.
Yeah.
Vampire.
Nice jacket. Little glasses.
Very big vampire.
I'll talk
Yeah.
to make Washington.
Yeah.
Right, especially on sale, get your 17-foot pole today, shop now.
Right.
They're not shopping now for these things, they're shopping a year in advance.
Yeah.
The sales team is like, why didn't you run that holiday special? I'm like, what holiday was it? They were like, Labor Day? And I'm like, I don't know, you can't give a discount on every holiday, that's what
Right.
consumers want.
Right.
And that's because we have the Walmarts of the world giving, and Amazon,
Yeah.
every day I get an ad that it's Amazon Day.
Yeah.
It's
No,
like
we
10 times a year now.
we used to do the Black Friday, Cyber Monday sales were it. We run something like that every 2 months. And it's a 1 to 2 day sale, and it's 20% off the whole site. So a couple of things that we have. You made me think of 3 different things. First of all, you have to be really careful of the internal people. Oh no. One of the things we have, so gift cards are the worst thing ever invented. And lately, we have all these promotions that have gift cards. I asked my boss, I'm like, why? Why are we doing this? Oh, because it doesn't show up for the buyers. It's a discount that they don't get dinged for.
Yeah.
So they're gonna throw those down all day long.
Yeah.
The operational overhead of doing gift cards is a gigantic pain in the butt.
You're basically
Um,
Applebee's.
Yeah, pretty much.
But it
But not
guarantees-
with not with fries.
And guarantees a return customer. That's that
Well,
is incentive.
yeah.
Right?
Or they leave it in a drawer and you get to hold it on your boat
Eventually
for 20
capitalize,
years.
yeah.
Eventually. There's that. I forgot what the other thing was. What did you say about the vampire steaks?
Making unsexy products
Unsexy
sexy.
products.
Especially for a sale and liquidation, when you're trying
Yeah.
to run a sale and it's all liquidation product,
Yeah.
it's like, here's a 19-year-old gasket and people are like, can I get a discount? Sure.
Actually, I'll
Yeah,
pay you to
free.
take it
We'll
away.
Take it out of the warehouse.
Yeah.
So I have a story brand. I talked about the story. Anybody else use a story brand framework for marketing?
You know.
Yeah, she didn't have a choice.
Well, so I mean,
She's indoctrinated.
So, for a long time, Coastal had the annual tarp sale. Tarp, liquidate tarps, put overs. And so I was like, in story brand, it's not about the tarp or the product, it's about the emotional connection the customer has to the product.
Yeah.
And so I said, what do people want tarps for? What do they care about? They care about what's under the tarp.
Yep.
They don't care about the tarp, they care
It sounds like a CSI episode.
Yeah.
What's under the tarp? What's in the box?
Right,
I'm sorry.
yeah. Thanks for-
I'm sorry. You're welcome.
Anyway, so I rebranded the promotion cover what matters.
Yeah.
And that's the story brand. So that's one way to make it a sexy product. Sexy is tied to emotion.
Yeah. No, it's very difficult to when everything's on sale. Was it when everyone's special? No one is.
Yeah.
When everything is on sale every freaking day, it's that's the real struggle. And honestly, our new head of marketing is trying to rein it in and trying to. Who said habituation? Somebody did. You did. Oh, you did. Yeah. No, I knew it was somebody here somewhere. Yeah. I mean, they're literally trying to break that cycle.
Yeah.
And also, like I didn't realize, we had a meeting last week and they talked about how the ads are put together, and I had no idea it's somebody in the business. And they're like, there's large parts of the back end of the company that like I had no idea existed. And so they sell a lot of that ad space and stuff. But in Farm and Ranch, we give it away because we're such nice people. And our new VP of marketing, we don't play that, so he's not having it, and so and it's huge. It's turned around a whole bunch of stuff, and also now we're not running a 17-page flyer or a 20-page flyer that we're just, hey, here, let us advertise stuff we're losing money on because we're helping our vendors out.
Yeah.
Like I really thought his approach was super smart. So.
I'm curious how you manage, sorry, jumping in front of somebody. I'm curious how you manage the strategy of build versus buy. So you talk about optimize, like Microsoft mentioned, but in every space, like I primarily work with the logistics and supply chain.
Right.
It's the same battle in technology. What do you want to build? What are you going to buy? How do you manage that? So how do you all approach that?
I have a story for you.
I'm sure you do.
Of course I do. So there must have been, at some point in the last 6 or 7 years, a really amazing airline magazine story about microservices. Like it must have been a freaking Pulitzer Prize winner because everybody wanted headless microservices. And I was like, really? And they're like, yes, we need this. We have to have this. This is important to our company's future. And I'm like, can you tell me what it does? They couldn't. And so my technical architect and I came up with the term macro services. These are not the macro services you're looking for. Is essentially my theory on this, and prior to working for Coastal, I worked in an agency for 12 years, and prior to that, I worked in corporate development for that. And it's always build versus buy. It's always, we have, our ERP is so old. How old is it? It's so old Fred Flintstone used it. It's terrible. It's written in COBOL. I'm not kidding. So we have to build the middle layer because it has to talk to that Frankenstein monster. But what the concept of macro services is I am going to have the best possible vendor that I can afford do the best job possible at its job. So when we did vendor selection, when I got hired, they were already halfway through vendor selection. We were looking for vendors who were the very best at what they did that we could afford, and then had good integration layers. And I spent a lot of time in agency work, and the golden rule of agency work is don't endanger the upgrade path. So you extend the platform if it doesn't do what you need it to do right now. You extend it, you don't touch the core functionality. And so when you're evaluating a vendor, you're looking for vendors that are like, oh yeah, we've got APIs. This is how you get to our data. This is how you, because 3 weeks after you bought it, and the CEO comes to you and says, oh, we need it to do this, and of course it doesn't do that thing. You can extend it. And so we have the super ancient ERP over here. Thank you. My brain is starting to fade. And then we have our PIM, and we have our ECP, and we have our OMS. Now my boss, where he came from, they had NetSuite for everything. He's like, well, I really like it when it's all in the same thing. I'm like, yeah, that's a terrible idea, but. And so we have a really good PIM we have a really good e-commerce platform and a really good OMS, and they do the things that we need them to do for the most part. And if they don't, then that's where my dev team does. And so I try to not reinvent the wheel whenever possible, but if it's something like, again, in talking to this super ancient dinosaur-laden ERP, like we wrote .NET code for that, right? Because it's got to do, I mean, it only talks CSV files out and binary text files in. So it's like horrific. But we now have this middleware section that if they someday got hit in the head and we're like, oh, we need to get a new ERP, and they did it, adding that to our stack would not be a problem because we have all the connectors, we're set up to do that. But that's, yeah. That's you know, if you make sure that you do not compromise the core capability of whatever it is you're buying, and build around it. And then what we just found was like, we just found ourselves centralizing it's all Azure and .NET, which this was kind of great that it worked out this way. All of our main vendors are also .NET and on Azure, so my guys can work on almost everything. So you get efficiencies of scale. You're not always that lucky. When I was an agency, you know, oh yeah, no, that's in PHP, and this is in, you know, and whatever, and you're building bridges. But that's been something that's worked for me for years. Is only build what you have to, you know. So
real quick, one of the things that worked really well in Coastal during evaluation time, and this wasn't my idea, it was a consultant's idea, and the consultant, which was fit for Commerce at the time, they requires iOS and digital, but they said we want in our framework methodology, we recommend that you evaluate in groups. So you evaluate the ECP, the e-commerce platform, with an SI who knows that e-commerce platform, with order management system that works with that platform, and that the SI has also worked with. So we did groups of 3, we evaluated groups of 3, and instead of just like a platform, and then find an SI, or find an SI first, then a platform, we did it, like, and it worked really well. Like that group we came up with, and you're still working with all.
Oh yeah, they're the best. They're in Romania. They're the best.
That was 2018. So,
yeah.
You know, anyway,
the
so
best
that's
offshore devs I've ever worked with.
Yeah, and I had always just done like platform, but this idea of doing it in groups worked really well.
That was really
Just
good.
real quick, and then definitely when you would get your answer. But I did work on a kind of a microservices composable project, and the key is basically is when I rescued. In other words, it wasn't going well, and then so I brought in to rescue it. And if you go composable, the most important thing is your development team and your internal team. Like you can't just, it's such a mess otherwise. You've got to have a really strong, if there's external developers, external development team that's done that before, and a really strong internal team who knows how to direct that team. Because it's very messy.
There's a lot.
It's really hard, and a lot of times it doesn't work very well.
There is a really large farm ranch chain, much larger even than our conglomerate, the Verge brand, that decided they were going to go headless, and they spent $1 million with developers in France and rolled back to the same platform I'm on today, because they were going to get off of it to get headless and get microservice. The funny part is the people who were really pushing microservices was Amazon, who also stand to benefit from microservices. And there was a blog post like a year ago, and it was the guy from Prime Video saying, we're going away from microservices because it's too expensive. And I was just like, oh my God, I dodged a bullet there. So sorry.
Oh, no, yeah, similarly, I'm a big fan of buying. Put as much liability on someone outside your team as possible, and then we build on. So at ODS, we bought most things. We did some build just for the key functions that it didn't have. My current company, which is in a totally different industry, we're in med tech, and we only build. So we just recently brought software in-house from overseas and some other kind of semi-local, but the reason for that is we compete in technology space, and so we have to build something new every single day to compete.
Yeah, you guys are so cutting edge.
Yeah, so we're like actually building
You've got
things that
it.
don't exist,
Yep.
yeah, but as far as other platforms like e-commerce, straight by, I've built on 3 or 4 functionality things that we needed, but at the end of the day, I want all of the liability on someone else, not my internal team.
Yeah, we actually, this mid-states group, is a bunch of farmer Rand, Fred, Paul Gars, all these guys, they all get together and they all talk about how bad business is, I guess, or whatever. And so they came back from the one in July, whatever, confab or whatever, and I don't know if they burned candles or anything, whatever, but they came back from that and everybody said, our e-commerce is losing money, you have to get cheaper software. And so they came to us and they were like, well, these guys in Kansas, they're on the same platform, on the same horrific ERP as us, and their OMS software only costs $20,000 a year, and they own the software, and it's out of India, of course. And I'm like, okay. And so we spent 4 months defending our position that like this is a horrific plan. We are not a software company. I have 3 devs and me. You do not want this. We can have another rebuilding year plus, or we can keep growing the way we're growing now, and that's your choice. So it's a huge amount. Like I want to own anybody's upgrade. I don't want to. I mean, that's just like fraud software and stuff like that. Like unfortunately, I'm a team of 1 for a lot of things, and like I can't be on top of anything. That's why I have to rely on a vendor, just like you said. I want them to be experts at what they're doing and handle it in the best way possible, because I'm honestly not that smart.
The other thing is like a potential buyout. You want to make it as easy as possible for your potential buyer if you're a small business, or eventually, PE is buying
Yeah.
everything anyway.
Yeah.
Eventually, someone's going to offer to buy you, no matter what you are, who you are.
Yes.
Make it as easy as possible for them to look at it and say, oh, I have 6 people who know how to use this platform. This will be an easy purge. Because the second you have all proprietary stuff, no one knows how to use it.
Exactly.
They either want you to sign a 3-year contract to stay on, or the sale falls through because no one knows how to use it, or they realize it's going to cost $2 million to switch everything to a commercial platform. So make it easy.
When I worked for a large company. I don't think is KinderCare still in town?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Is anybody here from KinderCare? I'm gonna badmouth, well, I'm not gonna badmouth. They had their sales system that all their sales leads went into, and it was some version of, it must have been like Salesforce 1.0 or something, and it was so old there were literally 3 people in the United States who could maintain it. And they had one outage while we were, and they're like, we don't know how long it's gonna be out. He's on vacation. And we're like, what? How does that even work?
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, it was not good.
Well, I did want to leave a little time for everyone to network. I looked like you had a question if you wanted to throw it out there, and we'll wrap it up.
Super quick. I know you guys talked just a little bit about your membership and partnership programs. I was kind of wondering a little bit more about how you guys integrate it in your organization, and from your insight, where you see that space going for your organization and maybe for other industries.
Rewards program?
Yeah, so say like Adidas has membership and partnerships, you have loyalty programs, like kind of similar, working with D2C, but also working with other businesses to integrate both.
Well, I see it becoming like, I know that it's a huge push because they are seeing the larger average order value from those systems. And so we have our internal version, and then when we merged with Cal Ranch had a arrangement with FNBO, which is a big credit card, First National Bank of Omaha. It was not Mutual of Omaha, which I was hugely disappointed. But they sell credit cards. And so there are now, I mean, as of about a month ago, I think there are Coastal branded credit cards, and there's a loyalty program off of that too. And then we also sell Applebee's, gift cards and stuff like that. So we sell all these other, and I'm like, oh my God, how do we keep track? And there was a gigantic, literally the program went on hold for 6 months because they were like, wait, the way you're doing this with the FNBO program is going to double the loyalty amount that these people get that are already loyalty people. And then someone else brought up, oh, but if you do that and then you use a different card, that you lose half, like it turned into like, you have a train leaves Phoenix at 55 miles an hour and that sort of thing. And literally management just froze and didn't know what to do. So I would say it's big, but it's kind of got to be unified, like you have to agree. Another terrible story, the day we merged, we were about 2 months from publishing a unified site, and we brought everybody into the same site. They published a brand new loyalty program, and if you were in the top tier of the loyalty program, you got free shipping on all orders or something like that. And I'm like, we don't have tiers in our loyalty program, so I don't know how that works. I don't have any code that does that. So yeah, so one thing is you gotta have it unified inside. And the biggest thing is the business has to understand the math. Like you can't, when we first rolled out loyalty, which was the business was like, oh, this is gonna be too hard to reconcile, so we're gonna have to reconcile it on a rolling 6-week thing. And it was one of those things, I mean, we literally had a whiteboard and I kept coming back to what, I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. I don't know how to build this. And we finally got it all done, and then they operated for a year and found out that nobody did it for a year. And we're like, hey, annual, how does annual sound? We're gonna calculate an annual. So I would say the big thing, like having your ducks in a row and having the business signed off on, if we are giving away money, and this, you know, we're gonna get it back probably in volume, but they need to understand that up front before you build thing one, because I've built more than thing one, and then they come back and go, that's way too expensive, and you're like, that's what you told me to build, you know. So I would say, you know, it needs to be, I mean, Steve did a really great job of branding because it wasn't very well branded before. We had balloons, I think, wasn't it balloons that was the promotion or something? It wasn't very well branded. We put it together into a cohesive program that had name recognition and all that. So I think the whole, what I'm trying to say in way too many words is, the business has to understand it, and it has to be unified for you to be able to work it into your systems, for it to be in the store and for it to be in e-commerce. There has to be, that's one of the things, farm and ranch, there's not a lot of project managers in farm and ranch, so it's real interesting.
One glove.
Yeah, one glove, it's Michael Jackson. And he sold it to him, yeah. Do you have a picture? That'd be great. Because they don't, at least where I work, and it's a pretty large company, like they don't know how to run a project. So like as a e-commerce person, like you have to push back on the business requirements, get them to get their ducks in a row before you build it, and before you start integrating it everywhere. Steve was really good about putting that together, and this is what it means, and this is how we're gonna do it, and these are the places it's gonna be. It was really easy to understand. We've got some dude in marketing making up vaporware and then making a flyer and sending it out, and you know, nobody knows. So I don't know if I answered your question.
I think it's more.
Well, I was thinking about partnerships maybe with like brands that you partner with, or like kind of like a little bit how you manage differentiation between, like, say you are working on Carhartt and you're starting a website. Like, what are some things that you're doing to integrate those two to drive sales?
Oh,
Well,
talk about the brands section.
First I just want to say, because we kind of like membership or rewards or loyalty, I think it's more important than ever, because again, that's that data, that customer data. In order to activate it, you're leveraging that, data more and more every day. It's so important to get your customer data in a row, and all the touch points your customer has with your brand. That's to me the main reason to have a program, a membership program, or a loyalty program, or rewards. On brand partnerships, I mean, Carhartt, the problem, I don't want to say the problem, the challenge with Carhartt is they'll run a program, it's a national program, so every retailer that sells Carhartt has the same exact promotion. So it's really hard to differentiate. Coastal wasn't really big enough to have like a one-off, like, okay, area, you do that for us. No,
Right.
we weren't big enough. They'll do it for Tractor Supply.
We're getting it more now
Okay.
with the combined
You gotta
brands.
combine, yeah.
So one of the things that we did when we rolled out the website was we had all the things that you have: outdoor, hunting, fishing, all that stuff. But then we also had the brands pages that, and then also your breadcrumbs led back to those brands. So there was a breadcrumb back into that. We messed with that a little bit, but that actually really helped, was having those brand pages, because then you could sell ad space on those things, where you could get them to give you a better deal on stuff, because I have this one area that's
You're
all
gonna highlight
online.
it,
Yeah, and from a development standpoint, that's all you're doing is slicing and dicing the same data.
Yeah.
So it works pretty well.
So what Al was referring to is actually the co-op marketing
There you
program.
go.
Yes,
Thank you.
yeah, that's what I
There's
was
real,
gonna
there's
say.
real words.
There's a marketing person in the room.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's not me.
No.
It's not me.
That's exactly how we manage it too. So, we did not make any product, everything was from vendors. If they wanted a digital merchandising space, they paid me for it. And there was no freebies, unless the only time we gave like a freebie on the website is if they were giving us free signage for the stores. 18 locations, you have to fill the walls. So, that work they gave us the merchandising, like side merchandising for the stores for free, because those we had to pay for. So if you're looking at like a Wilco, clipper or shear, they would pay us for prime real estate on the website so that they were above the other brands. And we maybe sold 30 brands that all function exactly the same and are made, most of them are made by the same vendor, which is funny. And so we used all of our co-op marketing for that. They had to pay us for that. And honestly, that co-op marketing is what allowed us to run all the websites and pay for the headcount. But that was one way we did it. At the same time, if they were able to double co-op, we would give them the discount of the week in our email marketing. And so they would get the ad space in the email marketing that said, this week we're running $1 off of Wilco. And so they would get both of those for a set price, where you could do one or the other. But to be honest, a lot of our e-commerce D2C money came from co-op marketing. And every person we asked, I asked everyone for money, no shame, because of one pricing. So
You got to have long pricing somehow.
So I'm over here getting the margins, And so I would ask everyone for money, and there was absolutely no pushback ever, because every company who was selling had a co-op marketing fund. And I knew that, they knew that, it was just no one ever asked them. And so everything that we integrated for partnerships had to be either paid for or some type of mutual benefit. And sometimes if they didn't have funds, they would offer to come in and do an in-store like lunch and learn. And so they would pay for their reps to come do a lunch and learn, and we would invite customers in, and they would pay for the lunch, they paid for everything, and our customers loved it because they were learning about new products. Sometimes they got giveaways. So they couldn't necessarily give us a check in those instances, but they were paying for what would have cost us $2,000, $3,000, and our customers are loving it because they're getting the education for free too. And so that helped us, even with our loyalty of, Home Depot's not giving an educational class, and so that helped them want to come. Yeah, but nothing for free.
Well, thank you to all three of you for coming and sitting on this panel. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it was really fun.
It's it's always the same problems that are getting solved, right? You hear a lot of the same things, and the fact that we're all thinking, how does e-commerce, agentic shopping, and just AI in general shape this next year is certainly what I'm thinking about a lot in planning events for this coming year. Really appreciate the insights you guys provide. Thank you.
Thank you.
There will be a coffee event getting listed soon, but that'll be for in March.